Hello everyone, I'm Greg Ferenstein with TechCrunch, and we're at South by Southwest Interactive with Mayor Cory Booker of Newark, New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining us, Mayor.
It's great to be with you again.
So we just got off of an electrifying talk that the mayor gave, and he had this fascinating idea that the United States was founded not on a declaration of independence, but a declaration of interdependence. And he linked that very specifically with technology, and I want to discuss that more with you now. So give us a little bit of idea what you were talking about briefly, just to tell the folks.
You know, we love our independence in the United States, and it's a very important value that I affirm. When you look at the progress we've made in this country, progress is made not by some quaint concept of rugged individualism. It's really made by people pulling together. I use the African parable that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's why people, when they were settling the West, went together in groups of people. That's why my parents tell me about rent parties up in Harlem where people were coming together to pool their interests. That's my experience. When I first started as an organizer in Newark, New Jersey, dealing with slumlords, there was a great tenant organization and buildings I moved into that came together as a body and helped each other, leaned over for each other. And then a very personal example is just my father, who was born to a single mom, couldn't take care of him, and the town came together to support them. And so what I often say, in fact, my Stanford commencement was all about this idea of a conspiracy of love, of people coming together, recognizing that through their collective sacrifice, collective struggle, collective will, we can make transformative change.
And you've been very forward on social media. In what way are you trying to engage this idea of interdependence on social media and Twitter? Very specific examples.
Well, a specific example is just crowdsourcing. I mean, think about this. I mean, my government now can move a lot quicker because I don't have to wait until a field director for the engineering department to discover something. You know, we don't have to wait for somebody to write an email, or most of us would just drive by, see a traffic light out and think, oh, that's a shame the traffic light's out. But now, which is amazing to me and a wonderful point of accountability, is that I will find out through my Twitter account what's going on or what's going wrong in my city before my departmental directors do. So I'm now crowdsourcing everybody telling me, and it's created efficiencies. And not only that, I can now tell and map and track, you know, from the point of somebody telling us about a pothole, how quickly are we getting that done? And so now these feedback loops become important data that we can measure and actually measure ourselves against and actually get better.
Okay, great. Now you have a famous social media following, you know, but right now you're the mayor of a city.
Right.
And we know you're considering a run for Senate or some higher office.
Yes.
How does this scale? How do you bring this idea of engagement through social media to a much higher level with a much larger constituency? Well,
so that's, to me, that's the issue that our democracy has to adapt to. And so we have a democracy right now, a national politics that belies the truth of what we're seeing in society, belies the truth of what technology has enabled us to do. And so we no longer have a zero-sum economy. We don't have a zero-sum culture in America. We actually have this wonderful concept that if I help you or if you succeed, it helps me succeed. You empower me. And that's wonderful, but look at our politics right now. It is a zero-sum game. If you win as a Republican, I lose as a Democrat. It's very linear in its nature. There's no feedback loops in it. In fact, the engagement we have in citizenry, it's like you vote, I rule. I have the information and the data, you don't. And it allows for perversions to happen in a democracy. It creates cynicism from people in their engagement. They don't feel connected to that. They don't feel like their voice matters as much, and therefore they're pulling back from society. They're pulling back from, the democratic sphere. And when personal interest begins to wane, special interest rules, and that has an influence.
But specifically, in what ways would you engage with other members of Congress, with your constituents, through technology that you think can help break the cynicism that you're talking about?
Well, a number of things, and that we've seen on a micro level. So first of all, the fact that our senators, and that's the body that I'm looking at running for, are kind of distant now. Your engagement tools are not as much. In other words, I can right now, from Austin, today, through the course of the day, connect with thousands of my residents in a substantive way. I can still answer constituent concerns. I can still deal with problems. And so giving senators who are often distant a way to better engage and better be intimate and better to develop even a following gives them power that they didn't have before. So number one, you're not a slave of the traditional media oligarch anymore. Number two is you can actually you can actually lead as opposed to follow. In other words, you don't have to wait to see what the poll says about everybody going this way. You can actually start feeding information and helping to educate people on an issue and be a leader in a more substantive way.
So on a particular piece of legislation, you would engage with your followers more, or in what
Right.
way do you
Well,
manage
look,
you would do it?
As a particular piece of legislation often happens, the only people knocking on Congress people's doors is what I imagine. And again, I say all this from being a local mayor and not being down in Washington.
Sure.
But from what I see from afar is that the people that are most active on pieces of legislation are people that have interest in it, and often interests that are self-interest and special interests that don't necessarily reflect the larger needs of the society as a whole. So now if you don't have to filter your media through MSNBC, Fox, and actually, in fact, as I do, there are many shows on MSNBC, Fox, or cable news that I could touch more people than that through my Twitter feed. And so now you don't have to filter your voice through somebody else who might take a soundbite or whatever, but you can go directly to the people. And by the way, these aren't people that are just tuning in by chance. These are people who have chosen to follow you and who are engaged with you. And now, when it comes to a complicated, controversial issue, you can talk to them about it, learn from them, but more importantly, motivate people to act around that issue.
One thing that you've been, I notice on your Twitter feed is you really engage with people who send very vile messages towards you, and you retweet them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you give them a voice?
Well, look, first of all, this idea of authenticity, that if I just retweet the nice things, it rings hollow after a while. I have my critics that are outrageous, and I have substantive critics, and that's important. Number two, if they have an issue that I want to address, I remember going on 3-4 tweets recently about somebody was saying to me, well, do something for kids. I'm like, wait a minute, we've done parks, we've done recreation centers, we've done this or that. It gives me a chance to address those thousands of other people that might have that same issue, but they're not writing it in a troll-like fashion, so to speak. So I think that engaging your critics are important, and ultimately your critics should make you humble, and you should learn from your mistakes. And so when people jump on your mistakes, don't hide from them. Let people know that you're human too.
And so if you get into higher office, one of the things you're going to have to deal with is a Congress that is almost by definition zero-sum, because
Right.
we have a two-party system.
Right.
Do you think the way you engage through social media, and if you can be specific, can help break the dialogue as it currently is?
Yeah, look, we are aligned, I think, wrong. We're aligned by party, and I think that there are some benefits from it. I'm not thinking we're going to change the two-party system, but we really, I'm a Democrat, but there could be a lot of issues I agree with that Republicans agree. In fact, what I found on the local level, when I don't talk to people in party terms, but I talk to them about problem-solving terms, that we can find a lot more accord. And so as I imagine a citizenry that becomes far more interested in problem-solving than parties. I saw a horrible poll recently that when they identified a solution with a party, people chose to be for or against that solution, not by the value of the solution, but by which party was supporting it. So we're reflexively partisan now. And we've got to start breaking through that and getting back to ideas and getting back people motivated around those things. So I don't have the secret code because I'm not a congressman, I'm not a United States senator, but I do really believe, and I'm seeing from my local level, that getting people focused on issues again and ideas again, as opposed to politics and people, is going to help us move forward. And more importantly, when you develop that type of constituency, they're going to hold you accountable for not being reflexively partisan in a way that doesn't serve this country. And so, specific examples, I think of, gun laws in this country are
ways that you've used social media to kind of break down this dialogue or to change it.
Look, I mean, there are a lot of complicated issues that I now talk about on social media, and one that's very important to me is guns, is trying to get people to be aware. I've written about it, I've tweeted about it, I've Facebook posts that we're not that different. In fact, the majority of Americans kind of agree the same thing. I've seen the data in my city that says nobody getting shot in my city is being shot by law-abiding citizens that buy guns. That's an important data point for the majority of crime. And the flip side of that is I also see that 80% of gun owners believe that we should be doing these background checks. And so being a proponent for that issue on my platform, I've seen a lot of people who've been engaged and who engage with me that are learning from that platform and offering up testimony, creating those feedback loops that help other people who are witnessing that engage and understand.
Right. One of the things you said is that the government moves very slow, whereas the private sector, especially the technology sector, moves very fast, and is it's happy to take risks. How does the federal government do that, keeping in mind that it's in charge of having a safety net for people? How can government be more risky without harming people?
I don't see how taking risks or moving quickly does anything but help people. Now, let me be specific because I could be interpreted the wrong way. So, in New York right now, they're experimenting with social impact bonds. So that if I am a group of people that experiment with lowering recidivism rates, I actually will save government money. And why shouldn't I get a percentage of that savings as the incentive to get involved with that? It's a new way of thinking about creating innovation in a space, creating real measurable results, and now government will advance. I will get some of the savings, but I will have brought an immeasurable benefit to society. And that's out-of-the-box thinking. And so to me, there's lots of things that we could be doing that can move government further forward. But government has got to start opening up and engaging citizenry as partners. I don't want to be a ruler. I really don't. I want to be a collaborator with the larger society and getting things done.
And what is one way in Newark, and if you have a technological example, all the better, in which you tried to get your agencies to run more like startups, to be more entrepreneurial, and what was the result?
Well, the best example was with thanks to the help of Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, we wanted to get our schools to cull the best ideas, and we created a teacher innovation fund where here are these frontline folks. This wasn't going to happen necessarily from technology alone, from the private sector alone, but we want to say we've got all these frontline workers who are innovating every single day to try to move the needle on education. And so we created an incentive fund to get people to bring those ideas to bear and bring them to scale. And that's within a circle of government workers, created a little pool of incentive capital. Crime, public safety, we've done the same thing.
Has anything come through with that innovation fund that's
absolutely. There are lots of ideas. We've given awards, I mean, for dealing with autistic children, for lesson plan development and sharing. A lot of good ideas came out of that. One thing with public service as well. We've created a way to, public safety. We've created a way for people to better help us get us tips about crime, and we've created again an incentive pool. You get $1,000 if you let us know where somebody has an illegal gun, and we've been able to do that everything from texting to tweeting to getting those information. We have created something called Tweet My Jobs for our government job placement center, where you could take your iPhone and actually use an app that we have with a private company, but we're using it to help people connect to work, where I could stand in a place in Newark and just turn around and see which people have job offerings. Or I could better use my social network to recommend me for a job. So here are some of your Facebook followers that work for companies that are looking for jobs. Get those people to be recommenders to you, because when companies will pay attention when good employees recommend other people, because it's often the best source of employers. So we're doing that right now in our job placement organization. So everywhere we can, and we're slow. There are other cities that are further down the line, but we're trying to use social media, technology, innovation, creating environments that spawn innovation and work, and it's helping Newark move forward faster.
Fascinating stuff, Mayor. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
We'll be watching very closely.
No, I'm grateful.
Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching.